Hi everyone, I'm Mike. I'm an artist based in the UK and I sell my work, both originals and prints, all over the world. Every Sunday I post a video. This is either a painting tutorial, a real-time demo, or a plein air adventure. I enjoy painting a range of subjects including animals, landscapes, people including portraits, and the occasional still life. I also enjoy using quite a wide range of media, including conventional acrylic, interactive acrylic, watercolour, ink tints, and even marker pens, and sometimes I just combine all of these together. Okay, well we just added some lighter marks, so now let's come in with some darks. So this is a mixture of the alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue. And it's generally, I feel, a good way forward is to, if you've just been applying some lights, pop some darks on and vice versa. If you've just added some warm colour, if you can, switch to some cooler colours just to keep things balanced. You can't always follow any of these sort of little tips that I'm mentioning. There are always going to be exceptions, but they're just sort of rules of thumb, really. Now that little mark went on a little heavier than I intended, but it's not too bad. So now again, this is a purple, which isn't really present within the browns on the head, but by putting little marks of the darker colour next to some of these highlights, it's just going to make them pop a little more, and it adds a little bit of, hopefully a bit of visual interest, because you're adding a colour which isn't there in reality. So again, the further on in the painting I get, the more I tend to deviate from my reference, but hopefully at the same time still maintaining enough of the original inspiration so that it's still representative. So again, this colour, the shadow under here isn't quite this dark, but it's going to all help bring things to life, hopefully. So I'm actually quite liking this purple, so I'm going to add some of that on this dark shadow here. And I'm also adding some sort of little tufty bits to the bottom edge of the hen. So I had quite a smooth outline, and I now see that that's not quite correct. And again, I can continue, while I've got that colour on the brush, I can continue to overlay some of the patterning that I've put down already with some patches of this darker colour. And for the most part, I'm applying this paint, it's pretty much straight out of the tube. So it's not going on as fluidly as the earlier coats of paint. And that gives a little bit more of a ragged texture to the brush marks. But, that's pretty helpful in this particular circumstance. So in the same way you can kind of balance out hot and cold colours, light and dark tones, you can also balance out smooth blended brush strokes and more ragged impasto or dry brush mark making. Now some of this pale blue colour that I used on the beak earlier, that would be better if it was a pale purple. So I've taken that dark shadow colour that I was just using and mixed it with a good amount of the titanium white. Now, I've added quite a lot of patterning to the hen, and that has started to bring it to life in one sense. But the danger with that is that you can start to lose some of the modelling. And obviously one of the key goals with any painting is to create an illusion of 3 dimensions on a 2-dimensional surface. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to add a glaze of a bluish purple. So I've just put a little bit of the crimson into the ultramarine blue, and the ultramarine blue is quite transparent. So just going to spray the surface of the painting a little bit with water. I've zoomed right out on my reference to help me ignore the patterning of the hen. I'm just squinting again, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this glaze to darken the shadow areas where I feel it's needed. Now the danger here is I may lose some of the patterning work that I've done, but I can always put that on top, and it's more important to establish a sense of light falling on the animal before we get into too much detail. So I need to maintain that throughout, basically. Now we won't get the full effect until this glaze is dried. And I could use a glaze medium, of course, but this usually works reasonably well. And it also adds a certain vibrancy to the colours as well, or to the painting, I should say. And that's not to say that I will necessarily leave these patches of blue pure blue. We'll have to see how it looks when things dry. I'm hoping more of the brown will show through than is apparently the case at the moment, but as I said, we'll see what it looks like once it's dry. So that's probably enough for the moment. And while that blue is drying, I can take that opportunity with a slightly thicker mix of and a slightly bluer mix of the same colour to just do a little bit of drawing. So convention says that we draw first and then we paint, but I quite like alternating between the two. And in particular, I want to just refine the drawing that I've got here, which is very basic at the moment, for the feet and the legs. So I quite like having little bits of outline showing on some of my paintings if that's going to enhance the final image. Now in general, I would recommend having a somewhat broken outline, or an outline which changes colour and or tone and or texture as it moves around the thing you're painting. But as a first step, what I'm doing now is just sticking with the blue. And in fact, because the blue is a little bit translucent, as I put it over this green background, I'm getting a little bit of variation in colour anyway. And because I'm using a small round brush, the width of the line I'm putting down, it's nowhere near as regular as I would get if I was using, say, a marker pen. So some of those things I mentioned are kind of happening automatically. But what you definitely want to avoid is achieving something which makes the thing you're painting look as if it's just been cut out and pasted onto the background. Okay, so that's helped to make the foot there more visible. So we can do a similar treatment over here on the other leg. Now, at the moment, I've got the leg wider at the top than at the bottom, and that's the wrong way around. I now realize looking at my reference. So even at this relatively advanced stage in the painting, you know, if you've been working fairly loosely in the way that I have, that's kind of cool, because on the one, you know, it creates a little bit of life in the mark making, and it makes things, you know, somewhat expressive and can lead to interesting results. But the downside is that sometimes fundamental little things like the width of a leg that I just mentioned, they can kind of get lost or distorted in a way which detracts from what you're trying to achieve. So it doesn't ever hurt, in my opinion, to just review, you know, the real fundamentals in terms of structure and line. And what I'm hoping is that, you know, when I bring these legs and feet up to a better resolution, you know, so that they're more finished, hopefully that will really make it look as if this bird is, you know, walking along as well.